I'm Jenny. Today I'm going to answer the spiritual question of what is a spiritual awakening, or also known as Kundalini rising. In my video on January's channel message, I mentioned awakening and spiritual awakening, and that led to some people reaching out to me and asking me, what does that mean, or like, how do I know I'm going through a spiritual awakening? And when you start to research awakening or spiritual awakening, you'll also come across Kundalini, which is a yogic term, which I'm going to go over too. And so I wanted to create this video to do my best in explaining a spiritual awakening. So I want you to remember that we're all a soul. So everybody's got a soul in there. And I think we're mostly soul-led when we are infants and children. All you have to do is look at a newborn baby and you just see all this light. And children, just like I speak the word of God, they are just so beautiful. They're like angels on earth. And then as we age, I talked about in the channeled video about like us being like Russian nesting dolls and having like layers put on us. So as you age, you have like social norms and gender norms and family issues and cultural things and histories and family trauma. You just have all these layers put on you. Around the age of 7, your ego becomes more prevalent, more vocal, and then it's just kind of buries you in thoughts and confusion, and it's harder for the soul to step forward. So a spiritual awakening is that soul stepping forward again, you getting cracked open or opened up in some way for your soul to take the lead. Now, some people are just always, or for the most part, soul-led ever since they were children. They always felt spiritual and they've had that. And I think those people are rare. I think for a lot of us, we go through some dark times. People refer to things as like a dark night of the soul, deep depression, rock bottom. We go through these things, and if we were truly soul-led, it would be maybe harder to go through those things. So you have your soul, you have all these layers. Some event or something will trigger an awakening in you. For many people, it's traumatic, but it doesn't have to be. It could be something you can't even recall. But for a lot of people, it's a traumatic thing on a death of a loved one, a loss of a job, something that makes them hit like a rock bottom, so to say, where they have no choice but like to surrender and give in. And it turns them to start questioning things. For a lot of women, it is childbirth, because the Kundalini energy is deeply associated with childbirth, and it helps awaken the Kundalini in women when they become mothers. So a lot of women will say, I just felt like an awakening or spiritual path when I was pregnant or when I gave birth. I had a higher calling, those kinds of things, right? And so I want to talk about Kundalini real quick. So if you've ever seen like a medical symbol of like a staff with 2 snakes going around, that's called a caduceus, and that is symbolic of Kundalini energy. So the staff is your spine, and metaphorically, on your right side at your root chakra, which is at your like coccyx, right, the base of your body, you have this coiled up snake of masculine energy, and then you have this coiled up snake of feminine energy on the left side. And as you do healing work on yourself and journey deeper into spirituality and, consciously like do yoga or work on healing chakras or doing energy work, these snakes start to rise and they cross, and where they cross is going to be a chakra. And that's a Kundalini awakening. Now, there are ancient yogic ways to awaken the Kundalini. There is Kundalini yoga. And supposedly, there's a lot of these ways are no longer taught or done because the Kundalini awakening was so abrupt and so intense that some people really had almost like a psychotic break, would be the best way to describe it, and really hit like a deep darkness that was too much for them. That's not, for everybody. So for most people, there's something else, some triggering of questioning of maybe, really stressful job. And it's like, you get this sense like all of a sudden, like, I don't want to live like this anymore. Like I want to be happy, or I want to be fulfilled, or I want to be mindful. There's something in you that starts questioning more than just this life. that's the awakening, right? And what I want to say is that everybody has this capability of awakening. There's almost like an elitism in spirituality right now, where it's like, I'm ascending or I'm awakening, and like people around me aren't. They're like stuck, but how do you know that? Like, that's not really fair. Everybody is awakening at their own speed, at their own process. Some people wake up faster, and then it's like a slower process to get more evolved or have the healing. Some people wake up slower, like everyone wakes up. So, we see sometimes in waking up in like an elderly state, like right before death, people become very clear about who they are and who they are at a soul level and become more spiritual. So it's never too late. Everybody has the potential. There are a lot of conflicting things about spiritual awakenings, but some things I can just assure you is that you are a soul. When you spiritually awaken, it's your soul being pushed forward, like you're starting to recognize that highest self and tap into that highest self and being led by that highest self. That I know for sure. It's you starting to recognize the ego and observing your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You're coming out of that, cycle of like anxiety, depression, whatever cycle you've been in, right? Of just constantly being in your thoughts. You're coming out of that. You're the outside observer, suddenly like, whoa, like, can't believe I've been living like this. There's got to be a better way or whatever. There's a lot of questioning when you have a spiritual awakening. And there's a lot of layers. I talked about the Russian nesting dolls. Like, you heal one part of yourself and it seems like you spiral back and you got to heal it again in maybe a deeper way, right? Some things that help on the spiritual awakening is forgiveness. That's one that A Course in Miracles talks about. So the whole book is really about just forgiveness. And that really will help heal a lot of your ego wounds, your inner child stuff, your old stories, anything. Those are like blocks on on your awakening path. And so working on forgiving yourself, forgiving others for, what they did when they were not awake, or what you did when you were not awake. Chances are you've gone through some trauma and you may have a really hard time forgiving these people. Something that's really helped me is sending forgiveness to that person, either at their soul level. So finding the soul, and no matter how dark I think that person is, and sending forgiveness to that part of them, or imagining their inner child and sending forgiveness to that part of them. Forgiveness does not mean acceptance. It does not mean being a doormat. But when we really work on forgiving, it opens us up. It opens our heart up. And the reason why that is important is because it's my belief that the heart chakra is the key to really like accelerating and waking up spiritually. Our lower three chakras develop over time through age and as we grow. But if we don't consciously work to open up our heart chakra, we're not going to open up the rest. Like, it's got to be a more conscious thing. For some people, like I'm saying, they have this freak Kundalini awakening and everything just opens. But for the rest of us, it's slow, steady work. And opening the heart, the biggest thing you can do is forgive, right? So that's one tip. Another tip is to keep a journal, because chances are you may circle back to something you thought you fixed or you got over, right? Or something you thought you were past, or, so it's good to keep a journal of like how you healed that the previous time or how you worked on that. Having a friend, I have a best friend who I call my angel buddy. I call her my ride or die spiritual partner, who I can just tell anything to. Like, I think this is my ego talking, and it's like someone else to go on the journey with, and I'm very grateful for her. If you can't find that person, then the journal is that for you, right? Something else is to know that there's just going to be a lot of layers. And just because you wake up doesn't mean like it's all going to be easy from then on. We have different layers of waking up, different levels of waking up. And the key is to try to stay awake. So ways to stay awake is meditation, yoga, conscious thought, right? Mindfulness, like being aware that you are not your thoughts, being aware of your thoughts, being the observer of your thoughts. And then, you know, being out in nature, being grounded, because that's another thing is a lot of times people wake up and then they're just like spaced out. And so being out in nature and grounding is really healing. I hope this helps you. I hope this helps answer what is a spiritual awakening for you. If you have questions, please leave them below. And as always, I appreciate a like and a subscribe.